Sorry about that. That was the that was the wrong scene that I first moved to there. Okay, ignore that. Hello everyone. Thank you for coming along to this lunchtime stream. I hope that I will be able to provide you with some useful information today. So today's stream is a continuation of what we've done for the last 4 Fridays. But I'm thinking that this is going to be the last one. Now, the reason I'm thinking it's going to be the last one is because, assuming everything goes well today, this will be the last of the Cake Addins that are kind of directly under my control. So the ones that are published in NuGet.org and the ones that live under the Cake-Contrib organization that are mine, this will be the last one. Now, however, as I have mentioned to you before, there is a Cake community member by the name of Sean who has been working on submitting pull requests to other Cake-Contrib add-ins, the ones that aren't directly under my control. So what I'm planning on doing with those ones is reaching out to the maintainer to see if they would like some help in merging those. Now, that's obviously a more convoluted process. I can't necessarily just kind of jump in and do the work on those add-ins. So I need to reach out to the maintainer, find out whether they want some help, and if they do, then I can interject and kind of merge some of the PRs. But that's not something I'm planning on doing on a stream because that's harder to do. So the last one that I have on my list, and I keep looking over here because I've got my Excel spreadsheet of doom open, which is all the things that needs to be done to add-ins and the ones that it needs to be done on. The last one that I have to work on is the Cake-Chocolatey.Module. Now, it's not strictly an add-in, but it kind of falls under the same remit of having to be updated to the latest version of Cake and so on. So yeah, let's just jump in. First thing on my spreadsheet is to update to the latest version of Cake. Now, there will be, I expect that there will be a open pull request from Jericho, which will be to bump up the version numbers of some of these things. Cake.Chocolatey.Module. The last would be Cake.Recipe. See, okay, so let's take that point from, what have I spelled wrong? I see what I've spelled wrong. Turb. Let's take that point from Kim. So I have a bunch of Cake add-ins and modules on the Cake-Contrib organization, and I also have Cake.Recipe. So Cake.Recipe is neither an add-in or a module. It is a set of convention-based scripts. And Cake.Recipe takes a dependency on a lot of add-ins and modules. So there's kind of this chicken before the egg situation where I can't necessarily update Cake.Recipe to use the latest versions of Cake until all of the add-ins that it depends on takes a dependency on the right version of Cake that I want to update to. So the intention is, yes, to update Cake.Recipe to use Cake.33, which is the latest one. And that definitely does need to happen. However, and this is the big however, what I want to try and do, so if I look at this setup.cake, then almost all of the add-ins that I'm aware of that use Cake.Recipe are currently pinning or not pinning to the currently released version of Cake.Recipe from the myget feed. Now, that's the one that gets published every time we do a commit to the develop branch. And that's great because that means they always get the latest version. The problem with that is that they always get the latest version. And I want, and for my own sanity, I want more of the add-ins that are in the Cake-Contrib organization to be pinned to the 1.0.0 release of Cake.Recipe. Then I can go ahead and break a bunch of stuff in Cake.Recipe without directly impacting on any of the add-ins that take a dependency on it. So this is one of the things I'm going to do in this stream, which is to to pin that to the 1.0.0 release of Cake.Recipe, but there are still others that need to do that. Now, what I haven't done, because I haven't necessarily wanted to scare myself, is I haven't searched GitHub for this string, and that would give a reasonably good indication of how many I need to do to do that work. Haven't done that yet. But if we look at Cake-Contrib, then there are something like 141 repos. So a significant proportion of those add-ins will be using that version of Cake.Recipe. I think we can search for that. Maurice, let's just jump in here and search for that and see where it comes back, shall we? See, that's lying. We couldn't find any repositories matching. That's a lie. There's at least some that do that. Where's that ad coming from? Oh, that was a load, sorry. That was probably what was throwing it up. Oh, that's a scary number. 142? Really? So yeah, Terraform, AppVeyor. Yeah, all of these are gonna... That's a lot of work to update all of those. But that's kind of what I've got on my to-do list at some point. And that's not going to be anytime soon, I don't think. So, yeah. Some use a specific version of the pre-release. Yes, that's true. Some of them will. So this one, Terraform, is actually going to be fully broken because of the MyGet retention policies that we have. That package version actually isn't going to be there at all anymore. So some will use a specific version, others will be just the pre-release. But all of these need to be updated, otherwise the builds are going to break. So that's kind of where I want to get to. That can't be true. Oh, that's a recipe. Yeah, so that one's under my control. I will need to fix that one, but it's not technically an add-in or a module, so it's not been updated. Some of these are abandoned, or not abandoned. Some of these are archived now, so some of these will go away. So those are all the PRCA repositories are they're archived now. So those ones I don't need to worry about. Those are all of Pascal's work. So those ones don't need to worry about. Yeah, so that one's okay. But there's still a significant number. So if anybody out there wants to help, feel free to jump in and pin to a specific version of Cake.Recipe, and that will help get this number down. But for now, I'm going to do the last one that's directly under my control, which is, as I said, Cake.Chocolatey. So there will be an open pull request from Jericho, I suspect, and his automated bot of updating stuff. So, no, I don't like that. Why has it got all those commits in it? He's maybe taken it from the wrong... I may do this manually then, because of reasons. So let's just grab this part. Let's grab this icon URL out from here. Yeah, that was my thought as well, Kim. I think he's taken it from the master branch, which is not necessarily the right place to take it from. So let's do it manually. Let's get this updated to use 33. So Cake.33. So right now it's on 28. So we want to get this updated to be 33. And there will be a reference in the test project as well. There'll be 2 of those. Let's do this one. Save that. And then the other issue that his issue mentions is the icon URL in the new spec. So let's get that updated too. And that's in my clipboard. So let's put that in there. entirely sure why that happened. Okay, so that's that. And then those are the changes. So all we've done is we have bumped that, and we've changed the icon URL. So this is going to be tied to yeah, I could, but the so Kim's pointing out that I could interactively do the rebase, and that's absolutely true. But the other thing I didn't like about the pull request was that it's also modifying all the line endings for some reason. So it's not just there's something has happened in this PR. I know Jericho had some issues originally when he was creating these PRs where the line endings were differing between the two. So that's kind of another reason that I don't want to do it with this one. So I'll just do these ones manually. So let's update this while we are here. And we'll say, thank you, Jericho, for doing what you did. Thank you for raising this PR due to there being commits in the PR that are not required, and also line ending issues in the file. I am going to close this PR and redo the changes directly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. But what I will do is I'll still reference the issue that he created. So the issue that he raised is a valid one. So let's assign this to a milestone, which is going to be 060. And as per previous discussions with Kim and other people on the stream, we're going to make this a breaking change. So we have updated 28 to 33, and we are modifying the icon URL as we suggested. So this is going to be GH11, I think. GH11. Fix items discovered during audit, and that's going to be bump to Cake.033 and correct icon URL. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that, and we will add them all, and then we're going to do a git push upstream. I could have done that as a PR, but hey, we are going to go straight in, git push origin. So now if we go back over here and do a refresh, that should have an additional commit associated with it, which is there, and we can go ahead and close that out because we have fixed it. Okay, so looking at my list, that is the first thing that I want to do. The next thing that's on my list is to update the new spec metadata. Oh, you see, you should have... Yes, we should have done that. I should have remembered to do that. Let's do it on the next commit, and we'll give him some... let's give him some credit there. Co-author. So what Kim is referring to there is that when you're creating a commit, or rather, let's do... Yeah, when you're creating a commit, if you're working in a pairing session, similar to what we're doing now, or if you are taking someone else's work and kind of maybe twisting it a little bit or modifying it, it's good to give them credit and credit back. So GitHub actually allows you to do that by simply adding some information into the commit message, and it will know to make the commit associated with two people. Right, and yes, that is what Maurice is saying there. That is actually where it came from. Kim and I were talking on Gitter about this because he had done it for me on commit. I think you were making it to Cake.Warp, was it, Kim? Kim was doing some work, and I'd made a suggestion to do something or to try something out, and Kim added me as the co-author in the commit message, and I was like, I should probably do that when we're on the stream. I completely forgot about it just now until Kim said it again. So what we need to do is we need to add this kind of nomenclature into the commit message. So let's try it on the next commit. Now, Kim also pointed out that we might not necessarily want to put someone's direct email address into there. So what he suggested was that, and he's giving me a link to the commit, so let's bring this up. What he also suggested is we might want to use kind of the no reply email address that all people have on their GitHub account. So this one, so the reason, the way it comes up is comes up with co-authored by. So rather than it just being Kim's face here, you've got my face here as well. So he added in this nomenclature, which is co-authored by me and my email address. But so what we wanted to try was to try it with the no reply email address. So let's go back to, let's give this a try and see where we can get to. So this was a pull request, and this was Jericho. So let's look at one of his commits, because the fallback will be to use the email address associated with his commit. So we can look at one of this commits here, and by just throwing .patch at the end of it, or if I spell that properly, if I just send .patch at the end of it, we can get the actual commit, the Git level information about the commit that's happened here. So this is Jericho's handle here. But if Kim is listening, how do I, or what is the structure of the email address that we might want to try using? Or can we just use the username that, can we just use the username? No, it needs to be an email address, so it does. Okay. What's this? If a person chooses to keep the email address private, you should use the GitHub provided no reply email address to protect privacy. Otherwise, the co-author's email will be available to the public, and that's what we don't necessarily want to do. If you want to keep your email address private, you can choose GitHub provided no reply email Git message. Let's have a look here then. So it's username, right, so let's give this a try. So this is what we want here. We want this, right? Come on, over there. Copy that. And let's put this in here so that we have it. So to start with, we'll give Jericho his credit for the first part. So this is going to be Jericho, and it's going to be co-authored by, which was here, co-authored by, copy, co-authored by, and we'll just call him Jericho, right? And then, does it need to be in angle brackets? It does. So let's do this and this, okay? So that's what we're going to do. And then where I was going was to go and get the next change that I wanted, which was to update the new spec metadata. So in the the new spec metadata has changed how they handle the license URL. So rather than having a license URL attribute in the XML file, it's now just got license, and then you can also append a repository as well. So in here, if I go into this one, I'm going to go ahead and remove this license URL, and I'm going to put in the new metadata here, and I'm going to change this to be Choco. I work for Chocolatey, but I can never spell it properly. Cake.Chocolatey.Module, okay? And then if we go back to our commit, we can say this is a build commit, and we have update new spec metadata. Okay. Do note that there needs to be a blank line before the co-authored by. yeah, so this sort of structure. So normally, or rather, I might have some additional text in here to say kind of more details about what I wanted to do. But I would need, what you're saying is, Kim, there I would need a space and then the co-authored by to make that work, correct? So I don't really have any additional comments to make in this one. I'll just say updated new spec metadata. So let's give that a try, and then we'll do everyone who wants to be on the commit in the next one, and we'll have that flowing through as well. So update new spec metadata. So let's go ahead and commit that. Okay. And let's push that, see what happens. So git push upstream. And I'm going to have updated the new spec metadata there. And the icon URL was already done. Okay, so let's see what happens there. So if we go up to here and have a look at the... Oh, that doesn't look promising. Come on, GitHub. There we go. So if we go over to here and have a look at the commits, then what has happened? Oh, look, it did. So it's got Jericho in there. Look at that. And I'm assuming that that's the right Jericho. So that's member of Cake contributions. Yes, it is. So this is Jericho. Beautiful. Okay, so that worked. Happy with that. So what we need, so anyone who wants their GitHub username in the next commit, feel free to throw it into the chat room and we'll get that added in. And okay, so the next thing I wanted to do is to pin to or change the name. Okay, so this next change is purely me being having OCD about certain things. So I want this setup.cake file is going to be changed to recipe.cake, right? And that's purely because I want it to be. It has no real bearing on anything other than it sort of, in my head, it announces the fact that this is using Cake.Recipe by having a recipe.cake file. So in order to do that, I'm going to do a couple things. So the first one is I'm going to update the bootstrappers of this project because I know that they're probably out of date. So I'm going to say install a bootstrapper, and that's going to give me the option to add or overwrite the existing build.ps1 file. And I'm going to do the same thing again for the bash version of that. So, because there have been changes to the upstream bootstrappers, or the recommended upstream bootstrappers, and the default that come down have a build.cake file as the default name. So I'm going to change that to be recipe.cake. And then my build.sh is going to have the same thing. So it's going to have a build.cake here. So I'm going to change this to be recipe.cake. Then I'm going to change this name of this file to be recipe.cake. And then I'm going to search again for setup.cake. So then I'm going to update the appvar.yaml file as well from my CI/CD assets. So the reason I'm doing that is because there was a couple of good suggestions from Kim and from I forgot his name. I was having a chat with him the other day. His name is, let's find it. Nikolai. So they suggested two things. One was to add this option into my appvar.yaml file, which was to not increment the build number on a pull request, which I thought was a good idea. And the other one was to skip the branch with a PR when running a build. So rather than, if you push a branch and you've also got a PR open for that branch, don't run two builds on appvar. So that seemed like a good suggestion to me. So I wanted to add that into the appvar.yaml file. So with all of those things done, this is another build commit, which is to update Bootstrappers and appvar config. And then that's going to be a also change setup.cake to be recipe.cake. Okay, so if I go back to here again, and I probably should have copied that from before. Well, let's grab this, and we'll put this in here, and then we'll get the co-author bit, which is here, and we'll stick that in the front there. So this is going to be co-authored by, I saw at least one in there that I'm going to copy. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put Maurice in here. And I needed that in those. And then I'm just going to do the username again and see if it figures it out. And then I'm going to do one more because it was Kim that told me about all of this. So that's just going to be @myringworm. By the way, Kim, I've always been curious as to where your username came from. What exactly is an admiring worm? Other than the obvious, that is. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to say that we've done that. Beautiful. And then I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet to mark off that and that. I thought that was going to be the case. So we've done that one. We've done that one. Okay. So the other thing that I've started doing was... just looking at the chat room there. I've got a cheer from Maurice. So thank you very much for the cheer. I appreciate that. That will probably mean let's do some inception, shall we? I think that means that you are now clear at the top of the cheer leaderboard, because if anybody cares about this, I know I've got a rough appreciation. I've got a rough appreciation of this. If we look at the top of this stream chat now, then we'll see Maurice up here by himself now on 101, and Manfred is on 100. So Maurice now is clear at the top of the leaderboard table. So thank you very much. So before that actually goes into inception mode of showing me within me within me, I'm going to close this down again. And then Kim's also saying, it came as a suggestion back when I was creating an account for Xbox 360 and couldn't think of a nickname. I liked it. Sounds like a good idea to me. I was in a similar situation when I was trying to create my first, it was Hotmail back in the day when I was at Academy. I needed a username, and the only thing I could think of was my initials, and that's where the whole GEP thing comes from. And the 13 has historically been my lucky number for whatever reason. So that's where the whole get 13 comes from. So I'm going to look at... Oh, and did I push that? I thought I did. Oh, I don't think I pushed it. Git push upstream, and let's see if this worked with 2 committers. Let's have a look. Refresh. Oh, what? Oh, I've done something wrong, because Kim didn't... Oh, is it the space? Oh, I'm going to have to watch that. Apologies about that, Kim. We'll try you again on the next one. Yeah, we'll try that again on the next one. Let's grab this, or at least have it selected. So the next commit is really or the next thing I want to do is kind of a convention that I'm starting to getting into, is the .github files. So Git comes with the option for having code of conducts and contributing files and issue templates and pull request templates. So, I'm not going to do that. So in the chat room there, Maurice is suggesting to force push. If this had been a feature branch, then yes, I would have done that. But since this is one of our long-lived branches on this repository, I'm going to choose not to do a force push there. So these are code of conducts and issue templates that I'm starting to use on a lot of the repositories that I work with. So the CI/CD assets extension that I've got here has a ability to pull those down in a oneer. The other one that I'm going to add is an editor.config file, and then there's one more in CI/CDs, which is the Git attributes. And I've also started to standardize on my git ignore file. So I'm going to overwrite the git ignore file that I've got here with the one that I've got in that repository that I've been working with. So this is going to be add build related files, but we actually did an update as well. So add an update build related files. And let's try this again. So we're going to add co-authored by, see if this works, right? So what's that? So to be honest, I have ignored that in the early part of a repo, the first day or so before any. You're talking about the files that I've just added, the .github files, or something else. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so Kim's saying there that if you just created a brand new repository, then in that time frame before anybody actually clones it, you kind of have the opportunity to do a force push. And to an extent, I agree with that. The problem between a force push is that anyone who's got a clone, they'll be out of sync. So they would have to do a reset hard against the remote that they've got set up so that they can bring their branches back into line. So you can work it, you can get around it, but in the open source world and GitHub, you don't actually know everyone. I mean, you know their username maybe, but you don't know everyone who's got a clone of your repository. So it's just kind of good etiquette to not do a force push on the master branch or the develop branch. You definitely can do it, and there are ways to get around it, but then you have to let people know to work around it, which is the harder part. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so that was more a general me just elaborating on what you said there. I know that you know about that one. Add, update, build related files. So I'm going to go ahead and commit this one, and let's do a push upstream again just to see if that second committer that co-authored is going to flow through properly. So we should hopefully get 3 people now on this one. So look, oh, there we go. So now we've got everybody. So we've got Maurice and Kim. Anybody else in the chat room who's wanting to get involved, I'm happy to add another username on there. And I like the fact that it's actually pulling through the name properly, as opposed to me having to put it in. So I can just use the username in both places. That's good. Okay, so we've done this one on my spreadsheet. I've done that. And now we need to pin it to Cake.Recipe. So into here, as I said before, we're not pinning in this project to a specific version of Cake.Recipe. So we're going to do that by saying version equals 1.0.0. And then rather than use the myget feed, I'm going to use the default, which is NuGet. So I don't have to specify that anymore. Now, virtue of the fact that I've pinned to Cake.Recipe, I also know that Cake.Recipe version 1.0.0 will only work with a specific version of Cake. So that one is 32.1. So I can update those, and I can put in here build pin to Cake.Recipe 1.0.0. That's correct, yes. So let me just follow up on that one. So the point that Kim is making there is absolutely correct. So what I said was that if you don't specify a source URL in here, it will default initially to NuGet.org. But what Kim's saying is, let's just pull it down actually. Cake. Let's get a configuration file. There is this thing called a Cake.config file, which gives you the ability to set global level Cake configuration. So this is the default feed here that's used if you don't specify the source in the preprocessor directives. So if you have a Cake.Contrib file, you can make this whatever you want. You can have this to an internal feed. You can have it to a myget feed, so you don't have to specify it in multiple places. It means that you only have to change it in one place if you change to something else. So that's absolutely correct, what Kim said there. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that because I don't actually need that. So let's go ahead and pin those. Right. And that was on my list. That one. That one's we're not doing. I have a check to make sure that I've just put an X in there if I didn't need to. I have a check. I did it again. I have a check to see if this is set. So should run git version is set to true, forces git version to run on a Mac. So by default in Cake.Recipe today, git version doesn't run on anything other than Windows unless you specifically specify that it needs to run. That's because historically, git version didn't play very well on anything other than Windows. That's no longer the case. So this is one of the breaking changes that will be coming in the next version of Cake.Recipe, which is to kind of flip this parameter to on by default rather than have to specify it. And lots of other breaking changes that are coming down the pipeline. And I did that. So I think that's everything I need. That's everything I wanted to do. So let's try running a local build to see if that runs. And let's see how we get on. And if this works, I may have a few minutes to start looking at the next add-in that I want to look at. So I said at the start of the stream that I'm not planning on doing any other streams on updating Cake Addins, but I will be doing that behind the scenes. So one of the ones I want to look at is the Cake.json add-in. And that's one of the ones that Sean has raised a PR against. So I wanted to have a look at that. That's the next one on my list to have a look at. And if we get some time before this stream ends at the top of the hour, I'll start looking at Cake.json and getting that one updated. So this looks like it's going to work. It's got past the build. The build is running. So if we hadn't done all of those updates, which was to pin to Cake.Recipe, pin to the specific version of Cake, the build would have failed straight away. So the fact that it's running and doing stuff is a good sign. And if this completes, we'll get this pushed to upstream, and we can then start working on creating the release for this one. So let's check to see if we're in a position to do that. So the issues that are open on here are those two we haven't fixed on this release. So those are issues that are open that need to be worked on, but I'm not doing that as part of this release. This release is just about getting to the next version of Cake.Recipe and the next version of Cake, and then I'll come back and work on these ones. So in this release, we have one closed issue, which was that breaking change that we had. So I am in a position to get the release notes created next. So let's see if this is how this is getting on. We're getting there. While I'm thinking about it, I had a quick chat with Rob Reynolds last night because I'd mentioned that the potential for the next Monday night stream was to have Rob coming on and doing a kind of a paired session regarding a PR that I have open to Chocolatey, which is the ability to do an export command. So Chocolatey at the minute doesn't have the concept of exporting the currently installed or the list of currently installed packages. So in a previous stream, right back at the start when I started streaming, we'd worked on creating an export command so that Chocolatey had that functionality. And Rob suggested that that might be a good candidate for kind of a back and forth session to get that pulled in. So as of last night, that's going to go ahead. So Monday night, I should have another person in my stream up at the top corner there, and that will be Rob Reynolds of Chocolatey, and we'll be doing a paired session on getting that PR pulled into Chocolatey proper. We might not actually get it pulled in, but we will certainly see the back and forth that needs to happen between a PR being submitted and the maintainer providing feedback on that. So there'll probably be some back and forth dialogue and getting that updated. So like I say, that'll be Monday night stream if you are interested in coming along to that. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and create a 060 release branch, which is the milestone that we're going to be working towards. And while that build is happening on AppFair, I can get the release notes created. So I'm going to say build is going to be target release notes, and I'm going to try and spell that properly. Release notes. And if that works, it'll create a new set of release notes here. And Maurice is saying in the chat room that we should probably behave if on the stream, if Rob's coming online. Probably, yeah. The last Monday night stream when myself and 2 weeks ago when myself and Matthias were working on the Cake website, we actually broke it, and there was a period of time when the Cake website was broken, and right at the time that we were doing that, Patrick, the founder and creator of Cake, was on the stream, so there was a bit of banter there, trying to apologise, or me apologising, saying that we didn't mean to break it. Let's make it one of... so that's done the release notes, and then if we go to ci.appfair, we should see that build on the develop branch happening. So let's go and log in here as GitHub, and we'll see that build progressing, hopefully. But yeah, if you have any difficult questions for Rob, feel free to ask them, and let's see what he comes up with on the stream. Nothing like putting him on the spot and having questions coming his way. So while that's doing that, I'm relatively comfortable that that's going to build. So let's do Git Checkout Master, and we'll prepare the local version. So we'll do a merge here, which is a no fast forward merge of the release branch into master, and we can push that up. Now, let's bring it up. Myself and Kim had an interesting conversation about Git Flow the other day. Now, I have always adhered to the kind of the original Git Flow model, which was put forward by this guy, Vincent Dreisen. Kim saying, oh no. So in this workflow, when you are finalizing a release or a hotfix, what you end up doing is you merge from the hotfix branch or the release branch into master, and you merge that same branch back into the develop branch. Okay, so you kind of close the loop in my mind. You close the loop by merging both ways. Okay, now seemingly in Siri, go away. In newer versions of Git Flow and the Git Flow tool that now ships by default when you install things, could you share that link? How do you mean share it? That one there, Maurice. Where would you want me to share? I could put that in the chat room if that helps. Certainly do that. I'm going to put that in there. And what was I say? So in newer versions of Git Flow, there is a concept now of merging the master branch when everything's finished back into develop. So rather than having the release branch or the hotfix branch go both ways, you take a final merge of the master branch back into develop. Now, I have never done that because I adhere to the original version of Git Flow. But Kim did make an argument that it's good practice to do that. Now, what I haven't done is I haven't started doing that. I don't currently do that. but I might start doing that once I've given it some more thought. So in my process here, I've just merged the release branch into master, and I've pushed that upstream, and that's gone. Now what I would then do is I would go back to my develop branch, and I would merge the release branch into here, and that kind of closes the original Git Flow loop. But if I try and do that, and say no ff the release branch, it's going to say it's a no op, because we didn't actually make any changes on that release branch before we diverged. So there's actually nothing to merge back. And that was kind of one of the points of contention, is that what Kim was saying was that the master branch is now ahead of develop. And if develop is kind of where you're basing your work from, it should have everything, all the commits that were in the master branch. So yeah, the link that Kim's put into the chat room there is kind of the new default tool. So there was an original Git Flow project, but it's kind of been abandoned, for want of a better word. It hasn't seen any updates in a long time. So this Git Flow AVH, I don't know what the AVH stands for, is a new implementation that's based on this blog post that it links to, but it actually differs in how so the documentation in the blog post doesn't reflect what the Git Flow tool actually does anymore, because it will do a final merge of the master branch back into develop. So it's just something to be aware of. And this is the other part of all of this that I wanted to point out, is that although I adhere in my mind to Git Flow, I don't actually use a Git Flow tool installed. I don't have that tool installed to do some of those operations. I do them manually. So if I'm cutting a release branch, I use the lower level Git command to cut that branch, rather than the Git Flow tool that would do that for me. Again, that's just me. I prefer to not rely on any aliases or tools that kind of don't ship in the box, if you like. So it's just something to bear in mind. That's how I work. And Matthias here is saying, but if you do the hotfix in the release branch, it won't be a no-op in dev and release. But if you do the hotfix, see, this is where the overall process comes into play. In my mind, there wouldn't be a hotfix on the release branch. Why would there be a hotfix in the release branch? The hotfix comes from master. Hotfix doesn't come from the release. So, unless Matthias has written that wrongly, I don't see why you would ever have a hotfix on a release branch. You would have a hotfix from the master branch, which would then get merged back into master and into develop. I wouldn't have a hotfix coming from my release branch. So I'll let Matthias come back with that and see if there's another comment there. So now, assuming that this master branch build completes successfully, I will edit this release to complete it, and then that will trigger another build on AppVeyor, which will then publish all the assets to NuGet. So let's just wait for AppVeyor to catch up. So yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, I see, in terms of the Git Flow conversation, I see the reason for doing the final merge back from the master branch. I just don't know if I adhere to it yet. The AVH is an acronym for a virtual... What does that mean? A virtual home. What? I'm even more confused now. Virtual? A virtual home. What does that mean? Is that because it got forked? Is that what it's referring to there? I wonder. So Matthias is saying, I check out master to a new branch to do a hotfix. Check out that to do a release, and merge that release branch back to develop and master. I check out master to a new branch to do a hotfix. Yep, totally agree with you so far. Check out that to a release. So the release that you're referring to there is a release branch. Why would you? The only reason that I would do that is if the hotfix is no longer being shipped as a hotfix and you want to release it as a patch version in your next release. Now, the word release is overloaded here, so I want to be clear that we're talking about the same thing. So that app.var build completed. So I can then go ahead and do publish of that release on GitHub, which will trigger another app.var build, which will then publish all the assets. So let's see that happening. The branch I ship. I'm not. You're not helping here, Matthias. Yes, hotfix. Mean the branch I ship. You would do that when you're working with a team of 10 people. Yeah, I'm not following that line of conversation, I'll be honest. We can maybe have this as a conversation piece if Matthias is back on the stream one day. So to recap, I adhere to, at the minute, the original Git Flow blog post, which doesn't merge master back into develop. The new version of Git Flow, which is what this project is, does. It merges that final release, final master branch back into develop, so that they all derive from the same head at that point. And the Git Flow tooling that's installed by default will have that tool in it, not the original tool. So at work, we only have master. Okay, so we're talking about something different then. We're not talking about Git Flow. You're talking about as Kim is pointing out, GitHub Flow, which is that doesn't have those two mainline branches, which is master and develop. That's something different. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's also not what I follow. And next Friday, Git Flow discussion with admiring more and dev lead. I would be up for that. I'd be happy to let people talk, and I'll just adjudicate between everyone. I don't mind. But Kim's saying he wants no part of that. I can understand that. This is a mess of weeds, right? This is there. I was actually talking to on Slack someone else about something related to this. Git is one of those tools that is so capable of doing things that you're never going to have a workflow that is right for everyone. Everyone is going to have different opinions about what should happen. So the best advice I would give is to find a process, whether that's a workflow, and use whatever works for you. And that's essentially what Matthias is saying in the chat room as well. I personally find Git Flow work. It sits right in my head. I understand it. I know that some people have said that, or some people say that Git Flow is complicated because there are multiple branches in flight at once. Personally, I don't see it. It makes sense in my head. I would much rather do that than anything else, and that's why I use that as default on a lot of the projects that I have. There are some situations where having a master branch and a develop branch doesn't necessarily make sense, and we've kind of seen that in the work that myself and Matthias have been doing of updating the Cake build website. Previously, it had a master branch and a develop branch, but that actually led to delays in getting things published. So for something like a website that we were using it for, Git Flow didn't make sense. So we've now moved away to just have a single master branch for that project, and we now have Azure pipelines in place to kind of do the work that the develop and the master branch were doing. And so I'm just reading the chat room there. So Matthias is saying, many branches in many repos in large teams have been a source of pain for us, and I can attest to that as well. That's certainly been a problem that I've seen happen. Not all have our level of OCD, and that's absolutely true as well. I've also seen kind of a Git branching strategy try to be a replacement for a higher level process of when things should get pulled in and when work should be done. And I don't see a branching strategy as being a replacement for due diligence when it comes to knowing what is being worked on. There's no replacement for that. That's where Kanban boards and sprint planning and backlogs come in, rather than trying to force the branching strategy that you're using to somehow manage all of that. So yeah, this is a very, very long discussion that you could have all day about this. But as Matthias said there, use what works best for you. And for me, what works best is the Git Flow model. And the one question that I have in my head is whether I'm going to adhere to that merging of that master branch back into develop to continue the development effort. That's something I might look at, but for right now, not so much. Okay, so that's completed. I'm seeing notifications come through on Gitter, and I'm assuming I will see a notification on Twitter as well. Keep it simple for many teams, even though it's not my preferred. That's true. Yes. So certainly in a team dynamic, yeah. They say use the KISS strategy, which is keep it simple, stupid. There's definitely some truth to that as well. Okay, so with that module push now, like I say, my packages. So if I go up to here and I look for, let's just find one that I know is nice and short, Cake.Gem, and I look at my user on NewGet.org, the packages that I have direct ownership of, which is Resharper reports, coveralls, Gitter, Twitter, .NET module. I've updated all of my ones now to use 0.33 of Cake and 1.0.0 of Cake.Recipe. So now what I need to do, or what I'm planning on doing, is helping out on some of the other Cake-Contrib add-ins that haven't yet been updated. But I'll need to reach out to those maintainers to see whether I will need to reach out to those maintainers to see if they want some help or whether they're just on holiday or working on other things. So that's something I need to do. So I'll be continuing with that in the background. The topic for next Friday's stream, I have something in mind. I haven't decided when I'm going to go with that yet, but certainly I will communicate that as soon as I have that. So dev lead Matthias is saying, send a PR to Cake to use the .NET tool module then. I will write that down. So that probably makes sense, yes. Cake PR to update. This is me writing on paper again. Update tool module. Okay. You got too many add-ins. Something. How many do I have? One. How many did I counted them earlier? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 add-ins and modules under my name. But there's also a couple of recipe packages under that as well. So I have 3 recipe packages that need to be updated, but they're not strictly. They just need to be updated at the minute for a Cake.Recipe version. Okay, so that's me. I'm going to draw that to a close. And yes, paper does have great battery life, and that's kind of I keep stealing it from Scott Hanselman. I think I heard it say it first. Is that the whole act of syncing to paper is a good way of unburdening your psychic weight of things that you have to do. By putting it on paper, you can at least visualize it and know what you want to work on next. So true. It never dies after a day. That's true. Okay, so I'm going to draw this to a close. Thank you to everyone for coming along. I like the fact that we were able to use the code co-authored by on the commits that we did here. So that's definitely something I will continue doing as we continue doing streams. I think it's a good way of at least letting people know that other people were involved in the conversations that went into these commits. So I really like that. Right, I'm going to go and get some lunch. So thank you all, and we will talk to you later. Thank you.